everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're thinking about moving to St. Petersburg, Florida, or St. Pete as we call it, you might want to take a quick pause and hear me out on some things that you should be aware of before making the move to St. Petersburg. While this is an amazing city, there's definitely some things that you should be aware of before making the move to make sure that living in St. Petersburg, Florida is going to be the best lifestyle for you and your family. So in today's video, we're going to talk over 9 things I think you should be aware of. Some are going to be, not that big of a deal, just something you should prepare for. Others might be deal breakers depending on your personal preferences. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Here's the 9 things you should know about St. Petersburg before you move down here. Number 1, it is hot and it is humid, especially in the summer months. My name is Jeffrey Clark and I'm the broker owner of Clark Realty here in St. Petersburg. And every day we help people buy and sell homes moving to and from St. Petersburg. And by far and away, when I have people move here from out of state that we help, this is the first thing that they mention once they move to St. Petersburg. They go, Jeffrey, it is hot. And they're right. Our summers can get sweltering. It's definitely something where, as soon as you step outside, you start dripping sweat. Some people love that. They come here for kind of the tropical vibes, the sunny weather and the warm weather. Other people can't stand that at all. So that's just gonna kind of be up to you, what your personal preference is and what your tolerance for heat is. The flip side of that is our winters don't get that cold. We don't have snow here. There's no salt on the roads. And the winters can be quite pleasant actually, but the summers get brutal if you're not someone who can handle heat well. If you're unsure about how this is gonna affect you, I definitely recommend making a trip at some point during the summer, just so you can feel the heat and humidity for yourself. It's something that, generally people become accustomed to. I've been a Florida boy my whole life, so for me it's nothing. But definitely when you move to St. Petersburg, you're gonna need to be prepared with AC, maybe some sunscreen, and a lot of deodorant. Number 2 is gonna be housing costs. And while St. Petersburg isn't as crazy as some other markets, it's definitely a little bit more than some other regions, especially if you're coming from a state more to the north or a more rural area. The median rent price here in St. Petersburg is about $2,150 and the median home price is about $470,000. Obviously, there's gonna be options for more or less than that. St. Petersburg has quite a few luxury options, especially when you're looking in waterfront or some luxury condos in the downtown area. But also there's some less expensive options. If you wanna go more into the center of the peninsula, you can find homes a little less expensive. You can also go a little bit north or south over the bridge and find things for a little bit less while still having access to all the amenities of St. Petersburg. But housing costs is definitely something you want to factor in. Like I said, I am the broker owner of a top brokerage here in the market. We help people every day with finding their dream home. If you're curious what your dream home would cost, just comment below. Tell me some of the basic criteria of what you're looking for, and we'll reply to that comment with the average price range for the kind of home that you're dreaming of. Number 3 is going to be the tourists and the crowds that brings. And tourism is kind of a double-edged sword for us here in St. Petersburg, because on one hand, it really benefits our local economy. On the other hand, it can make the city feel a little bit more crowded in the peak tourist seasons like spring break or the summer months. So it's just something that as a local, you're gonna have to be prepared for. In those peak moments, the traffic gets a little worse. It's a little bit more crowded and a little bit more hectic, but that's what happens when you live in basically, paradise. If you live where people want a vacation, you have to deal with that. But I like it. It's also kind of fun to see our city through the eyes of a non-local, because when they get in here, it's a lot of oh my gosh, look at all the palm trees and look at the beautiful beaches and this and that. And it can kind of recenter you and make you realize, oh yeah, we live in a tropical paradise. But again, like I said, can create a little bit more crowds, also put some upward pressure on some of our pricing. Just something to be considered and prepared for if you're thinking about moving to St. Petersburg. And speaking of crowds, let's move on to number 4, which is traffic. And traffic is hit or miss in St. Petersburg, but when it's bad, it's pretty bad. And if you're just kind of traveling within the peninsula, it's not gonna be too bad for you. But at peak rush hour traffic, especially if you're going back and forth to Tampa over the bridge, traffic is a nightmare. One crash on that bridge and what was supposed to be a 20-minute drive now becomes an hour-long drive. The main interstate that runs through St. Petersburg from north-south is 275, and 275 at peak rush hour traffic hours is, not a standstill, but definitely not smooth sailing either. It's something that local residents just work around and you'll find a routine that works for you. Personally, I live about 10 minutes from my office. It takes me 10 minutes to get in. I have a grocery store just a couple of minutes down the road from me. I do my best to avoid driving at peak traffic hours, but if you were considering living in St. Petersburg and working in Tampa, and you have to go to and from work at that 9 and 5 range, something you probably want to reconsider if you're not happy with traffic or if you don't want to sit in bumper to bumper every day, which I know I certainly don't. Number 5 is hurricane season. So in the same way that the West Coast has to deal with fires or other areas have to deal with blizzards, earthquakes, or tornadoes, in Florida, we have to think about hurricanes. So every year come hurricane season, locals kind of watch what's going on, make sure we're aware of any storms that might be coming through, and most of the time we're totally fine. Now, unfortunately, last year in 2024, we did get hit with 2 back-to-back hurricanes. We're pretty much back to normal from that now, although there definitely are some homes that are still dealing with the after effects of the flooding that occurred. But that was the first time in over 100 years that our city got hit with a direct hurricane. Most of the time, as the storms come, all that happens is people need to prep up. I generally go get candles, batteries for flashlights, make sure I'm stocked up on water and non-perishable foods, just in case power goes down for a couple of days. And for the most part, usually it's not a big deal, but in the event that it does happen, it's something that you need to be prepared for. If you are worried about flooding, St. Petersburg definitely has some homes, especially the homes on the water, that are subject to flood risk. But there's a lot of homes that have flood zone X designation, which means no flood insurance is required and it's the lowest level of risk possible. If flooding is something that you're worried about, definitely not a problem. We can help guide you into the areas where there is no flood risk, no flood insurance required, and kind of help take some of that stress off your mind. A lot of people don't mind that if they get to live on the waterfront, especially because flood insurance is federally subsidized right now. And so some people make that trade-off, other people won't want to. Either way, you'll definitely need to be aware of storms during storm season, the same way that the West Coast needs to track fires or other areas need to track tornadoes, blizzards, etc. Number 6 is going to be the cost of eating out. And this is kind of tailored to your personal preference, but I will say St. Petersburg is very quickly becoming a foodie city, and that added temptation can put some upward pressure on your budget for eating out day to day or month to month. St. Petersburg has amazing restaurants, and we're getting more and more fine dining options, plus a lot of like very cool, unique boutique restaurants. And so it can be very tempting to more regularly than you might have otherwise go out to eat. On average, a casual eatery here might be $15 to $25 a plate, but there's definitely restaurants here where you can spend upwards of $100 per person eating out. Obviously, if that's not something that you want to do, you won't do it, but just having so many amazing options around is very tempting. And a lot of people I talk to that move into the city or we help them buy a home get in here, and next thing I know, I'm seeing on Facebook, oh, we're eating out at Wild Child, or hey, we went to dine at 42. And those are not inexpensive restaurants. So something to be aware of if you are not good with holding yourself back from, going crazy on the food budget. St. Petersburg is going to offer some temptation, but that's something you can practice with self-control, just something to be aware of. Number 7 is St. Petersburg is a car-dependent city. Some people who come from other markets might be used to public transportation options. And while St. Pete does have some limited public transportation options, especially in the downtown St. Pete area, for the most part, you will need a car to get around in St. Petersburg. Again, if you live downtown, some public transportation options or a lot of things are walkable, but if you live pretty much anywhere else in the city, you'll need a car to get around, and so you'll have to factor in, gas prices, auto insurance, regular maintenance. Not something you can really get by on here without a car. Number 8 is going to be the culture of St. Pete. And while St. Petersburg is a city, what I mean by the culture of St. Pete is the vibes here is different than maybe some other cities you might be familiar with. For example, right across the bay is Tampa, and Tampa is also a city, but Tampa has kind of this like busy, commercial, fast-paced, high-octane vibe to it. And St. Petersburg is a much more laid-back, friendly, relaxed atmosphere. If you're coming from somewhere like New York and you enjoy that kind of like high electric buzz and bright lights and sound, and you can go out at 1 a.m. and there's a lot going on, St. Petersburg doesn't quite have that vibe. St. Pete is more about, cool shops, cool dining, going for a walk at the pier at sunset, less of kind of the hustle and bustle vibes of some other cities, which doesn't work for some people. Personally, I prefer it, but I know other people love that high energy feeling that you get in larger or like more busy commercial cities. And so St. Pete probably is not a good fit for you if that's the kind of vibe that you're looking for. But hey, come check it out for yourself and see how it feels. Number 9 is going to be the job market. And so this will be obviously a case-by-case dependency based off of what you do for work. But generally speaking, because St. Pete's less commercial and industrial, the specialized job opportunities are less here and more in Tampa. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of opportunities here. Job growth here has been stellar. Average income has been going through the roof as net population increases in St. Petersburg and more people come over here. But across the bay in Tampa is where more of those like specialized commercial jobs happen. Obviously for you, you just want to make sure that if you're considering moving to St. Petersburg, you see what jobs are available here. And like I kind of touched on earlier, you may or may not find your perfect job in St. Petersburg. It may be in Tampa. If that's the case, you need to be aware of those commute times. Now, we also help people buy and sell homes in Tampa every day. Not a big deal. We are happy to show you around that market, but make sure you know whether or not you're going to be able to work in your specialized field in St. Petersburg, or if you're going to have to make that drive to Tampa. That's definitely an important consideration if you're thinking about moving to St. Petersburg. So there you have it, 9 things to be aware of before moving to St. Petersburg. If you have any questions or if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. All of our information is below, and we'd love to help you find your dream home here in St. Petersburg, Florida. But let me know what you thought. I mean, did you consider consider these 9 things? How big of a deal are these to you? Are any of these deal breakers? Are any of these kind of things that you hadn't considered before? Make sure you press the like button and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to us with this YouTube algorithm. And comment below if you have any other topics you'd like us to cover in the future weeks. We release 2 videos a week to help you decide whether or not you should move to St. Petersburg, Florida.